Hi, I'm Theo, and these broadcasts are to support the blogs on NoMoreSea.com's website as well as the online classes. In this episode, what is the Apocrypha? Welcome back to the No More Sea broadcast. In today's episode, we're covering part 3 of our Second Temple Period Literature series. Today, we will introduce the 5 basic forms of Second Temple Period literature and begin with the first one. What is the Apocrypha? And the Apocrypha are often known by some traditions as merely as deuterocanonical text, and we want to explore what that means in the most basic sense. When scholars talk about the Second Temple Period literature, or the literature of the intertestamental period, as some people would like to say, pretty much we're going to be focusing on these five portions of our bodies of corpuses of literature. Okay. And Protestants refer to the first one as the Apocrypha. That's what most people are familiar with the terminology. Then we have the Pseudepigrapha. Then we have the Dead Sea Scrolls, which are recent discovery in Qumran around the Dead Sea back in the 1940s, and slowly came out and have been translated since and are recent among us. And then we have the writings of a person named Josephus from the 1st century, and the writings of another Jew who was Hellenist, writing from Africa and Egypt, the writings of Philo. So these are the 5 bodies of literature that we can compare to help us get an idea for what was in the mindset, what was the thinking. We're trying to think like the authors and the people who were targeted by these writings initially, what their thinking was. And so the only way to do that is to immerse ourselves not only in the text, the biblical text, but then these other texts. And again, I don't want to get into the canonicity of these. That's in another presentation. But again, some traditions within the Christian faith that are more traditional are going to call them the deuterocanonical books of the Hebrew Bible. They're a secondary canon. And so we are going to begin with this first segment of Second Temple Period literature, which many Protestants call the Apocrypha. And because traditions list them differently, it's just best for you to check out each tradition in their listing. And for more information, go to our series on the canon, where we discuss an overview of how some books are accepted into their respective canons. And so, again, how much different traditions are going to place different emphases on these texts and their importance. Scholars find them very useful and very important, obviously, if we want to understand what is called the Bible. They're very, very important. Again, it's a misnomer. David de Silva, in his introducing the Apocrypha, it's a misnomer because words change their meanings over time. And so it's very difficult. And when you hear the word Apocrypha, today, as we understand those in a non-academic or non-scholastic sense, it may make it sound like it's something bad. Some people have said it's a collection of forbidden or heretical books, scrupulously to be avoided. That's the viewpoint of some people. The word itself simply means hidden things, apocrypha, and the apocryphon, okay, singular form. But the adjective hidden has since taken on a pejorative nuance of hidden for good reason or suspicious or heretical. That's why it's hidden. It's interesting that the last book in the New Testament corpus, as far as the canon, is Revelation, and so the apocalypse. I mean, that's all in this term. So, you can't use that term to, and of course, we could do a class on that as far as the book and its acceptance and the history of tradition, what caused the book to be accepted in the Bible. Today, it's not so much argued, and all the ancient arguments are there to be sought out and understood, but it's not thought to be heretical. So the use of that term is difficult. De Silva goes on to say, such an evaluation, however, is more the work of centuries of unfamiliarity with the actual text than a balanced assessment of the text meaning and value. So I think that's important for us to understand. And I think De Silva has done a great job. And I would urge you, I love the way he writes. And I would urge you to dig in. So the truth of the matter then, coming from De Silva, is it's a vital witness to faith, specifically the faith of the Jewish people. You know, the Hebrew Bible, the Jewish people. You know, if you want a context for what Jews in this Second Temple period literature are thinking, and that's the foundational viewpoints that are being addressed in the New Testament to people who are coming out of, when you come into the first century CE of the Common Era, our first century, 20 centuries ago, now we're in the 21st century. When you enter that first century, you begin with the Jews, right? And then the Christ event is happening simultaneously. And after the destruction of the temple, you have two alternative views. And I would highly recommend Alan Siegel here and his book on the two sons, you know, the two sons, Jacob and Esau, the two sons of Israel, the two sons of Jacob, you know, as it splits off. And in the Old Testament, that's Esau, you know, and Jacob becomes Israel. Well, we have two sons in Jacob's sons, in a sense of a splitting off. Even as Jacob had two wives, in a sense, in Jacob's children. So Isaac's children, and Alan Siegel has done a great job on that. And so the idea is a splitting off. And you have rabbinical Judaism and you have Christianity that are two shoots. And later on, Islam is going to shoot off again from Avram, from Abraham, from, you know, that. So you have the three main religions that span the world today coming out of this tradition. So that's very important to understand what happens in that first century. And then again, about, you know, in the 6th century when Islam is born and takes its roots, but it does take it from here. So anyway, you have these books that are written, and they help us understand the Jewish people living in this period between the 3rd century BCE and the 1st century CE. So to understand them, and they are the primary audience in the text that we're dealing with in the New Testament, the different writings come from either Palestine, Alexandria in Egypt, Antioch in Syria, and possibly even Persia, from the large Jewish community that settled in and remained in Babylon after the deportation under Nebuchadnezzar when the first temple was destroyed. Remember the 3 deportations that led to the exile of God's people in the formal sense. Some of these were written originally in Greek, the common language of the Mediterranean world, from the 3rd century BCE, and others in Hebrew or Aramaic. So again, I would highly recommend David De Silva's book for more information on the Apocrypha, or what is known as the deuterocanonical books of the Bible. And so if you come across in your studies another, you know, texts that are quoted, you'll understand why. And it's trying to get the understanding. They're going to use the same language sometimes in the Greek or the Hebrew, the Aramaic. So then we can get grammatical comparisons, but they're going to also explain certain things of why the New Testament writers are writing the way they are, because they're speaking to people that come from this context. And it's very important for us, because 20 centuries later, we don't know. We don't have the context. So we need other pieces of evidence to lay us down beside these texts to help us to best understand them. So that was the first corpus, the first body of text, are these deuterocanonical books that are often just called the Apocrypha. Now, for the Logos users, those who have access to the Lexham English Septuagint translation will get easy access to not only an English translation of the Apocrypha, but they also get the Old Greek that we'll talk about in future video, the Septuagint, and they can compare the Greek in the Apocrypha with the Greek of both the Old Testament in the Septuagint and in the New Testament. Thank you very much, and God bless you for listening. Stay tuned for more episodes and videos to help you with your journey from nomorec.com.